So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this the top of the skull. I'm going to call this upper, and I'm going to call the mandible lower. So instead of using models now, the skull and I'm sure you know what I mean. So then what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use these mounting tables now because I've already aligned this, but if I had to, you'll see what I mean. So if I put in a mounting table, that's all been aligned. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to animate this. So I'm going to then say, okay, I'm going to bring in my condyles, which we then do. And this is what we do with our face bow as well. So the condyles are brought in, and they have a set location according to the Caver articulator. So we've taken the coordinates of the Caver. Most of these articulators are the same because the condyles are like 110 millimeters apart. So we've done the same thing. But in addition to that, we can move the condyles. And I find that's very important because if you've got it like a child or someone like really big, like a real Maori guy or something, they have a big jaw, you know, we can't.
The man from the Highlands.
All of that, all of that would affect the way the jaw moves, because if you if you lengthen the condyles, the point of rotation will be further than a small little monkey head, if you know what I mean. So that alone will affect the occlusion. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just move them in a little bit, and I'm going to view them now from the right side. And we do this with the face bow, but here we're doing it with the skull. So then I'm going to view this from the other side. And we've got tooltips on the bottom. So it says, then reposition and click side profile. So I look for the button called side profile, and I click that. And this again gives us the opportunity to move the condyle. So you may have a photo of a person and you've marked the condyle on where it should be, and then you will reposition the condyle where the marking is, for example. So, but in the future, we're going to change this onto the left hand, the patient's right side, because initially we did it on this side, but orthodontists, they always want it from the other side. So we're going to change it in the future. And then we're going to then click, we're going to accept this. We accept the condyles. And this now gives us the opportunity to set exactly like an articulator. I will hide the skull for now. It'll gives us the opportunity to set the articulator eminence. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click set right inclination, and that moves it down at a value of 33 degrees. Now that seems to be the default. So we've used that as a default, it's 33 degrees. You can change this if you want to, up or down. It depends on the condyle, but I personally in dentistry don't know how to measure this. So we've got all these articulators in the lab with the degrees, but I've never had a request from a dentist saying, okay, can you set this to 25 degrees? I've never had that. So I don't even quite know how to work this out. But anyway, so we've got this set at 33 degrees. And then you can then also swivel this. So that also, we've set that at a default of, I think it's 15 degrees. And you can sort of see the condyle is sort of correct. Not quite, but sort of. All right, and then we're going to copy these coordinates to so the white one moves to the angles of the blue object. And I'm going to do this again on the other side. So I'm going to click left inclination, and we can set these and then copy the inclination. So we've got that done. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the articulator constraints. Now, in the outliner window, on the right-hand side, you can see what is happening. So we've created the condyles, and these are all in a different layer. So with Blender, you've got different layers, just like Photoshop or other programs. The condyle, there's 4 objects in this specific layer. Then we're going to set the open centric. So here we've got an object, and maybe I'll hide the skull. This object here, and all of our articulator movements revolve around 4 objects. So the lower jaw essentially does not move. It copies what this object does. So if you look at the bottom here, this is called the timeline. And when we move this timeline, if I click on this one, there's no orange buttons. These little orange buttons are called keyframes. So they save the current position where it's supposed to be. So if I for instance open the bite of it, just say I open it by 2 degrees, or I can open it as much as I want. So it copies what I do. But just say 2 degrees, and then I apply the keyframe. So this saves the location to that movement. So if I move this, it's animated up and down, and you can watch the condyles move. So it goes up and down like that. Next, once I've done this, I'm going to set the protrusive movement. So I'm going to click here, set protrusive, and this gives me a little arrow on the underneath side. So this will be visual when you don't have the skull, because now it's blocked, unfortunately, but I'm going to hide this again. And with this protrusive movement, we're going to take this little green arrow, left click, and move it down. Now you'll see, the teeth aren't moving. That's because everything we do with the lower jaw, we have to link it to the animation. So just say, for example, you've got a crown, or you've got a splint, or you've got something, you need to link it, because it doesn't know where it's going, it's stagnant. So I'm going to click on this, and then in the articulator, we've got a little box called Link Objects to Animation. I'm going to click that, and then when I position the arrow, you can see how it moves with it, and it moves in the direction of the articulator eminence of these blue objects that we've set. So I can move this slightly forward if I want to, and then I will then click on Apply Keyframe. And this has now solidified my movement. And then I'm going to go to the next constraint, which is the excursive right side. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. So over here, we can move the jaw this way as far as we want, because it's actually moving down. It's staying on the side, but it's moving down the other side. You can see how it's actually moving down that side like this. So I'm going to move it down a little bit. And, well, maybe not quite as far. I will try and this could be a diagnostic wax up, for example. And then I may decide, okay, I may want to open it a little bit, and I can open the articulator a little bit. And then the other thing that we can do is we can put the Bennett side shift. So the Bennett side shift is immediate side shift of the condyle. So what I'm going to do on the x-axis, I'm going to say put -1. I think it's -2 millimeters or something. Or we can just put -2 millimeters and apply the keyframe. Now what it's doing, it's shifting the jaw to the side shift. It's opening it, and it's got the excursive movement. So can you see how it's moving across? Yeah. All right, so then we can go to the other side, left excursive movement, and we can do exactly the same thing. I'll move it slightly, and I'm going to maybe, I'll just open it just a little bit like that, and then I'm going to then put a side shift there as well. Well, actually that's a little bit much, so I'm going to put 1 millimeter and apply that. And if we want to edit it at any stage, we can do so by going to the right side, for example, and then we go to the articulator constraint. We can reset this and apply. And this is very helpful because we don't want to go through this entire process every time we want to articulate. So in the module file, we've got a default file, which is our so-called articulator. So every time you want to articulate a model, you open that file, you import your models, and you just name it upper and lower, and it's already articulated. And all you have to do is change the constraints. So here we have now animated it. So I can play this animation. So it's playing on this side and then on the other side. And we can view the protrusive forward. So this is basically how it works. Yeah, there.
Excellent.
Now, say for example, we want to cut in the occlusion. I mean, that's the whole point of having an articulator. We want to trim the bite. It could be a denture, it could be a splint, it could be whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, let's stop this animation, put it to the start. I'm going to now, for example, if I want to cut in the upper teeth, I'm going to then remesh it because these teeth are all individual teeth at the moment. If I go into edit mode, they look like one object, yep, but they're not one object because if I want to separate these teeth, I can separate these teeth. So I'm going to go to the remeshing tool, but first of all, I'm going to duplicate it because in case I want to shift the teeth later, and because once it's one object, we can't change it anymore. So I'm going to go Shift D, enter to duplicate, and I'll put it into a new layer. I'll just call that spare. Spare. And on the right-hand side, you'll see it's called spare, and I'm going to hide this. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to remesh it. So I'm going to go voxel remesh, and then I will say, can you see how it's made one object? So it fuses all the context together to create one object. And this is really helpful because if we're making a diagnostic waxer, for example, we want to cut all the teeth in one hit. We don't want to cut 14 different teeth. So we just fuse them and do it all in one hit. So I'm going to apply this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my cutting tools. So it looks very confusing, but we've got all the videos there. So you can, you know, each one is step by step. So once you understand each menu, then it's fine. So here, for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the lower occlusion out of this one. So I'm going to say, okay, this is my object being cut. Click on that. And the other one is the object making the cut. So always check that you got the right names. And you can see that in this little box here. You can see it in the outliner, on the model itself, and you can see it on the top left-hand side. I'm going to choose the lower teeth, and I'm going to say, okay, this is my object making the cut, and I'm going to offset at 0.1 millimeters. And then I can then click cut all movements. So let's cut all movements and just see what happens. Have you got any questions? Or?
No.
Okay, so while your computer's thinking, you're just dropping offline for a minute, but yeah.
Yeah, that's because it's thinking. This is time for me to have a bottle of whiskey.
Actually, that's just coming back to the offset. That's quite a handy feature to have. Because if you're making, for later we're doing our crown and bridge work, you want to maybe offset the opposing model. In that way, then your crown will have a bit of freeway space, so you don't have a hard contacting point.
Yeah. So now it's been cut, and in the articulator we've got a shortcut Control X, which brings up the articulator. So it doesn't matter which module you're working on, you can see the navigations if you want to. So okay, so if I go view right, for example, and I start the animation. So here we've got, when you look carefully, we've got it. Maybe I should just hide this. Hide. And I'll hide this one as well. You can see the occlusion has been trimmed. Can you see on the,
yes.
Yeah, over there?
Yes.
So that's all been trimmed. Even the protrusive has been trimmed as well. So if I say, for example, do a cross section of this little section over here, let's have a look and see how it's actually cut it. So it's exactly on the cut itself. Can you see?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll view it from the other side as well. View left. Just take a cross section over here, maybe, to see what's happening. So yeah, you can see it's been cut across. Yeah.
So
So
Michael, just let us give us some chance to ask questions.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll read. There's a few signs down here. I don't think they have. They've got that sign. Okay.
The floor's all yours.
All right. So
Okay.
what we're going to say is, oh yeah. So the dynamic cut. I've just got to block this sound here. So the dynamic cut is essentially cut how many cuts? We've got well, not the 0 one. We've got 4 on the timeline.
It's 13 all in all.
13. Okay. You've made 13 cuts in one go.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah.
So this sort of concludes the skull, I think. So maybe we can move to something else. With the we can do the face bow, because we were going to discuss the face bow as well.
And then maybe just go through the splint. I think the splint is a little bit more basic.
So let's just take this away and we'll go to the next file. All right, so this isn't the face bow. This is a wax up of a diagnostic wax up. So I'll just fly through this very quickly because now we've done this again. So for example, now we're going to do a quick animation of this full upper and lower diagnostic wax up. So here, if I hide it, we've waxed up over these teeth. And we're going to then, the first thing that we do is we're going to call this upper and we're going to call this lower. And then I'm going to import my condyles, and I'm going to accept the condyles because we know they are set according to the Caver articulator. We're going to then copy this condyle and copy that condyle, and then we're going to click on our constraints. So we can click on it, open byte, which we're not opening the byte itself. I'm going to call up the timeline editor, and now I'm going to set the protrusive. And here we're going to set this draw forward. Again, the lower does not follow because it hasn't been animated. We're going to click on the animation over here. link object to animation, and then set the protrusive bite. Now here we may decide we want to close it a little bit. Okay, we've got to close, sorry, I've got to take this to number 5. Close this a little bit, and we're going to apply this.
Apply
and then
keyframe.
we apply keyframe, and then we're going to go to the set excursive. And it's exactly like we've discussed before with the skull. And in the right excursive movement, we can see, hey, the diagnostic wax up is a little bit too heavy in the bite, for example. And if that's the case, we can select the individual tooth and we can move this one up a little bit if we want to. Oh, I should have set the, sorry, this is going to take some time. I'll just have to, this is called the proportional editing tool that cannot be selected. So if the diagnostic wax up is a little bit too heavy in the bite, we will then reposition. We will reposition the teeth a little bit, because we don't want, when we make the cut, we don't want half of the tooth to be cut off and disappear. So we've set that, and I'm going to apply the keyframe. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Also, very, very heavy on this one. It's too heavy, so I'm going to move this one down. But this we'll cover in a diagnostic wax up session. I'm going to apply this keyframe. Now we've got all of the animation. The protrusive, I'll just play the animation. Protrusive, right excursive is not playing. For some reason, I think I missed something here. Apply keyframe, there we go. Good. That's set. This one's set. Protrusive is set. Now the procedure would be exactly the same as with the skull. We would take this, for example, and then we would remesh it. But then there have been requests of putting more keyframes into the model, because sometimes you've got to follow the curvature of the teeth. So we can view the protrusive, and if you want to set more keyframes, we go into like a, say for example here we see this is like way out. We can then shift this particular tooth upwards if we want to, or we can set the jaw a little bit lower. And then following that, we would then cut it exactly like we have before. Wolfgang, do you think I should just give this a quick cut? The upper?
Yeah, if you want, just do a quick dynamic cut.
Okay.
Can you just slow down a little bit?
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so now you're going to the cutting tools. This is the bottom section of the articulator.
We can do individual cuts as well. It doesn't have to be all cut. If we want to say, for example, just cut a little tip of an incisor or premolar, for example, we can do that as well. and we follow the same technique. This is the object being cut. And then the lower object is the object that is making the cut. And we will apply the offset. And here I'm going to only click on one cut, apply single cut. And if you see closely, it's made one specific cut, as opposed to 13 different cuts. Are there any questions so far?
No, I think you're all good.
I can see how the ortho section is going to develop, I think, with your individual tooth movements and cuts. Yeah,
there's a lot of potential over here. But I think the most important is getting those trimmings correct. So especially when we do like dentures or splints, for example, we want to make sure that we've got all of that in order.
Being able to do it in plane all at once on an arch, though, that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think I'll cover the face bow. Face bow.
The face bow.
I just have to find the face bow file. I think maybe, is it this one? No, this is not. I think maybe I'll just start a new file. Just give me a second. Wolfgang, you can take over just for a minute.
I'll talk about something different.
At the Gold Coast weather.
It's freezing. Not like what you guys have. For us, it's like maybe 9 degrees in the morning on a very cold morning, but it heats up to about 22. So I suppose we can't complain.
That's summer in Scotland. That's summer.
We need wheat bags and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. How are you going there, Michael?
Good. I'm just getting the pictures, the photos, and then we can commence.
Oh, good.
So here's one, and there's the other one. All right. So Wolfgang, maybe you can just explain how these photos work.
Yeah. So these little cards that we got are like blank credit cards, or they call them identity cards. You can get them on eBay. Some of them come with a metal strip, but we don't use the one with a metal strip. I don't have a picture here of those, but if you just go on eBay, blank ID cards, you'll see those. And I think they sell them in packs of 50 or 100 in one go. So the idea is that what we do is on the edge of the card, can you zoom in, Michael? We've marked the card in 10 millimeter increments. There you can see that there. And these markings are used for us to scale the photo to the correct scale in Blender, so that 10 millimeter on the card is equal to 10 millimeter in the 3D workspace. And by doing that, of course, if you've scaled it, the teeth of the photo should theoretically match the models, right? And then we use the card and we place it on a horizontal line. So while the patient bites on the card, the patient, she tilted her head upwards, and then we actually get the X plane or the X axis in Blender. And by looking at the front photo, we will immediately get the Y plane. So then we've got the scale of the photo, we've got the X plane, and we have the Y plane. So we're using the card as a virtual face bow. And because we can then rearrange the condyles to the marking on the side of the face, theoretically we have a face bow situation happening here. So Michael, do you want to carry on?
Yeah, all right. So the first thing we do is we've got to name these again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on, this is the front photo. So the front photo is highlighted, name front photo. And then I want to select the side photo and click name side photo. And it'll say photo side and photo front. And then we're going to click on place front photo. Now this places the front photo, and then we've measured the distance between the pupils.
So now you brought it into Blender at this stage. The photo's been put into Blender.
Yes, it's just drag and drop.
Okay.
And then we've measured the distance between the pupils, and now we're trying to scale the photo in the 3D in the 3D environment, because it could be any size. So we need to have some point of reference of how big this photo is. Now we've used the between the pupils, but we're going to change this because some people have like really dark eyes. You can't see the pupils. It's like just black. So we're going to change it a little bit in the near future. But for now, the concept is all there and it's working. So we're going to continue with that now. So Wolfgang, what was the length? Do you recall?
64 millimeters from the center of one pupil to the center of the other pupil.
All right. So here we can set the length. I mean, that depends if you've got a child or if you've got someone else. So 67. So
64.
We set this
64.
64.
Yeah.
All right. 64. And then it'll tell us at the bottom all the tooltips. So it's going to say, then scale and move the photo. So I'm going to look for the button, scale and move front photo. So I'm going to click on that. And now in Blender, we use the S key to scale, S, and then we use the G key to grab and move. So here I'm going to...
Can I just mention something? So when the photo is taken, you've got to make sure that the card, let's call it a blank credit card, is in a good horizontal position. So you've got to see the edge of the card. It's no use if the card is tilted down and you see a large area. You want to only see the edge of the card. So taking the photo, just get the patient to tilt their head in the correct position, because actually that's going to be our the y-axis.
Campus plane.
The campus plane.
It's a campus plane, yeah. For now, we're using the campus plane, but we're going to also include the Frankfurt plane and the patient's right-hand side and natural head position in the near future. So that's going to come up in an update. So here we've scaled it. And this is basically for us to get the scale. The midline is the red line that you see on the screen. And following this, when you look closely, her midline is just slightly out to the right side. And there's a slight little bit of a cant. And now we can pick that up. We can see the card is actually moving up slope. And this is exactly what we need, because if we want to restore the teeth, this is what we need to get. So following this, we're going to then accept. And then it says grab, and then we move this to the position.
So the blue is representing the mounting table as such.
So this is not correct. No.
No, it's the pupils.
Yeah, this stays where it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to go one step back. We'll just move this back into position. Like that. And press accept. And now what we're going to move the photo to the plane. Now this is the occlusal plane in Blender, the blue plane. And we can see where the card is moving up. We can see where the jaw is moving up. We can assume that the pupils are exactly in the horizontal position. The midline, you can see it goes to the center of the face, the nose, the lips, and we've got a slight discrepancy going on over here. And this is exactly what we wanted to pick up. Then what we're going to do is we're going to mount this to the table. I think I've done something not correct. Yeah, we're going to mount this to the table. This is meant to be other side, isn't it, Wolfgang?
Yeah.
And then we're going to mount the front section. So we're going to look at it from the front. And we're going to move this in line with our teeth.
So the teeth are sitting sort of behind the photo at the moment.
Yeah, so we can see it's superimposed. So we can see the photo and we can see the teeth underneath it. And then we're going to move to the side photo. So we're going to place it to the side. Wolfgang, maybe you can explain this.
Yeah, so again, we're going to measure, we've got the increment measure on the card. So the blue line is already set to 50 mils. You can see that on the slider bar on the right-hand side. You can change that. So what we're trying to do is get 50 millimeters on the card to scale it down to the exact 50 mil of the blue line. Then we'll know that the photo is in line with the scale in Blender.
Yeah.
So
we're going to then, we're going to now scale the photo, and we're going to move the photo as well. So we're going to rotate the photo like this. We know that this cube is 50 millimeters, and we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need to fit this into our square. So I'm going to use the scale key and the grab. And once we've got it fitted,
make sure you got 5 in there, Michael.
1, 2, 3. Ah, thank you. That's,
all right.
Yeah, that would have just thrown a new curveball to me. Yeah, that's about right. Now we know when we scale this, our teeth are also going to be to scale. So that's about right.
Yeah.
And then we're going to click on accept. And then we're going to move the model to the side. So I don't think there's something not 100% correct here because it was hidden away. So we're going to move the photo to the side, and we're going to then, both of these match up perfectly now.
Yeah, so the credit card is just like a mounting table on an articulator, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got.
So we're working it almost in reverse
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there on, we can then delete the photos, and then we can import our, so we're going to import our condyles after this. So we're going to go condyles, and we can then set, you can see the condyles are already set in the correct position. If you've got a child, you can move these inwards a little bit.
Or if you've got a CT scan, you do that like you did in the beginning.
Exactly. Here we got the opportunity. Now, in this example, we haven't marked the condyle where it's meant to be. So I'm just guessing it for now where the condyle more or less is. I'm not an expert, you know.
But generally, you take a pen, and then mark it on the patient's face. So you feel where the condyle is and make a little X mark there.
Exactly. Yeah, that's correct. And then we accept this, and then we back to exactly where we were in the beginning. And we can then continue setting up our articulator.
Can you go through it very slowly this time, Michael?
All right, so we're going to set the right inclination angle, copy that angle, left, copy that. And again, we can set these like I've explained to you beforehand. And then following that, we're going to set our movements. So I'm going to open up the outliner. And I'm also going to open up our timeline. And now I'm wondering, hey, but this thing didn't work. And this can happen. And it's basically because I've ignored one step. I didn't call the names, the model names. So I'm going to click name upper and name lower. So if something in Blender in the add-on doesn't work, you will know that the name has not been allocated. So here we've got the articulator. I can open up.
So just explain those little locks down there, Michael, can you?
Yeah. So for every degree that you open up, if I open up the condyle by 1 degree, we've got like a little pin, you know, like in the articulator, like an incisal pin. We can see this is 0 and it goes down to 10 and it goes up to 10. So each little sphere is 2 millimeters. So 1 degree equates to 2 millimeters. 2 degrees will equate to 4 millimeters opening up the pin on the Cavo articulator. So it's always double. So if I open it up, say for example 5 degrees, I've opened it up by 10 millimeters.
Yeah. So the locks on the side are an indication that, you know, don't tamper with those. Just use the one that says rotation X, and then you can muck around with that one. So you can open and close it there. But the other ones, just leave those intact. They've got to be 0, because you don't want to rotate it the other way around the Z axis, because all we want to do is pivot it on the X axis in this by opening the bite.
Exactly. So for example, you make a splint, you need to make sure you've got adequate distance in the last molar. So if you say open it up by 2 millimeters, that gives you no space for an occlusal splint. So if we open up 2 millimeters, even that is like quite close. If you have a look, it's very, very close in the posterior. On the other side as well, it's very close. So if we set it up to 3 degrees, that would equate to 6 millimeters on an articulator. So say, for example, I apply this and now I can open and close it. I want to keep this location. With the articulator, we've got a thickness map. So we can, for example, select this model and we can then click on create thickness map, and we can choose the other one, and it'll show us how thick, how far away the model is. So at the moment, we can set it so that the red zone is 2 millimeters away. So as I move the jaw, it gets closer and closer, and the red is from 0 to 2 millimeters, and then the blue would be 5 millimeters further away. So this gives us a good indication when we're making a splint or something. Hey, we've got 2 millimeters on the posterior section. So following that, well, we're not making a splint in this tutorial, but with the, we would need to permanently open this location. So we're going to set this to a new location for lower. So now this is permanently fixed. There's no animation whatsoever. We would have to then restart the animation. So set open, we're not opening it up. Set protrusive. We can move this forward. Set the right side. Apply, and set the left side. And apply that. And then we've got our...
Okay, Michael, here's a question. Can you just show us how to set keyframes in between the 0 and the 5?
Yeah, that's a good question. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all the animation, but again, we've opened it permanently. So I'm going to close it now. We can close the articulator as well. So I'm going to then go to the constraints, and I'm going to set on set open, but now I'm going to close it. So we opened this up, I think it was it 2 or 3?
No, it was 3 millimeters, 3 degrees.
So I'm going to go -3. That closes it back to where we were in first place, so minus, and I'm going to apply the keyframe. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set this to the new location. So we're back to square one where we started.
Here's my next question.
But I haven't answered your first question.
Well, I'm just going to fire away, okay. The set open centric is, in my understanding, the 0 keyframe. Is that correct?
Well, it's not. It's not because set open just means that we're opening up the lower jaw, and we're going to keep that as our open position, if you know what I mean.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can put if we want the open centric, you open the byte, set keyframe on the number 5 position.
You have to. You cannot tamper with 0.
Yeah. All right.
So the 0 is always at the starting point.
Yeah.
Where the jaw moves. Yeah. So here we're going to go, and we're not going to open the byte, but we're going to set the protrusive. So to answer your questions, to set keyframes in between. So I'm going to open it, and I'm going to see, okay, the mesh. So while this patient opens a bite, it's the jaw has to open up a little bit to accommodate for, because we've got the 2 teeth hitting each other. So we're going to open this just slightly, and we can use the arrow keys here, like that. And I'm going to apply the keyframe here. And now I'm going to think, okay, but what about the curvature, the inside palatal curvature of the front teeth? Because at the moment, we're not getting this. It's going from A to B. So in cross-section, to demonstrate what's happening. So we've got this, and here, this is what's happening. We have not captured this specific curvature. So to be 100% correct, or as correct as we can digitally do it, we can change this a little bit. So here I'm going to set the curvature to there, the animation, apply, and then I'm going to go, say, for example, to this keyframe there, and I'm going to move this down to there, for example, apply this, go to this one, this keyframe, move it down. I can apply that, go to this one. That one seems to be okay, but I'll apply that. And we're going to go to the last one. We can't change this because, no, yes, we can. So the patient has a slight opening over here. So if we wanted to change this, for example, we can change that.
Yeah, but so you can't tamper with 0 because that's a locked-in position. Otherwise, you're minusing into the mesh of the opposing tooth.
Exactly. So now we've got this curvature happening. If you can see like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can do this with each and every movement. So if I go onto the excursive, there, for example, we can open this up a little bit, apply, and we can do exactly the same thing with the canine guidance.
So you just go Alt-B and that gives you the cross section.
Exactly, yeah, that's 100% correct. And if you see that there's no orange keyframes here, like what I've discussed earlier, we click on, we've got to select this object because the lower model is parented, it's linked to this specific object.
You're talking about the arrow, the circular arrow.
Yeah, the circular arrow, so yeah. So here, if I want to get the canine guidance, for example, you can see it's slightly cutting through the mesh. We can open this up like that and apply. And here it's a little bit, take this down a few notches. And there we've got quite a precise, you can see how it curves over the canine.
Yeah, so I would imagine for crown and bridge work, this is ideal, doing it, following the curvature of the teeth. Whereas when you're doing a splint or something like that, or maybe denture teeth that you're cutting in, it's probably, you wouldn't need to do all of this, would you?
No, I would probably say with the condylar movements, that would give us a good balanced occlusion, I would think.
Yeah, so here's another question. So if you've set a keyframe and you change in the number 5 position, and then you change your mind, or you want to change it a little bit in that 5 position, then you push apply keyframe, that'll override the previous setting.
Well, that's correct.
Yeah.
These keyframes, these keyframes, for example, if we look at here, we've got all these keyframes here. These are like the outliner, the timeline editor is really good because you can select one of them, click on X, and you can delete the keyframe. So you can delete, or you can take this one and use G, and you can move it. So you're moving the animation to a different keyframe.
Okay, so it's quite versatile.
So it is a little bit, I think once you've looked at the modules and the videos and the tutorials, it all makes sense.
You just got to play with it for a while. So we've got to remember not to use the locks that have got the sealed locks, but only the open locks are used for in that protrusive or right excursive or left excursive.
Except for the protrusive, we don't tamper with the wire. We actually use the arrow when we move it down.
Yeah, all right.
So basically, the only ones that we're using the X, and that we're using the Z. And for Bennett movement, we would use the location X. But
Okay.
that's about it, nothing else.
Yeah, yeah. Are there any questions? I think you covered quite a lot here, Michael.
I think so too.
Yeah. So,
yeah, no, that was excellent, guys. Thank you. Sorry I had to disappear there. The FACEBO element we're already discussing here, how we can use it. We can use that already in patients. So I think that's definitely going to be next on our agenda.
Yeah.
No, really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
some people, a lot of orthodontists, like I've said before, they use the other side. So I'm working with someone doing that and getting the Frankfurt and the true head position included in this module, but that's maybe a month or two down the line.
Yeah, no, we were just discussing a patient that we had yesterday, and one of the things with the splint module, we haven't printed any splints as yet because of the thickness element. Putting that color change in is just that's fantastic as far as we're concerned, because it'll allow us to see properly digitally how much space we're working with.
Yeah, it's very easy to use because you choose any objects that you want to use. So say for example you want to see the color of the lower, you just choose that one, create thickness map, and then you use the dropper, put it on there, and you can already see what you're doing.
Brilliant.
And this is live because I can play the animation and we can actually see what is happening, where the thickness is.
Yeah, oh, great.
And then once you're done with it, you just delete it. You just delete the weight and it's gone. So it's very, very good. And with the splint module, if you want to see the thickness of the splint, for example, what you do is you can use the articulator, this thickness map, select it, and then select the upper model. So if you've got a splint on the upper model, select the splint, and then you use the upper model as the measuring how distant it is, and then you will get a reading. You will see how thick it is.
Yeah, no, brilliant, perfect.
Yeah,
thank you.
Good stuff. Yeah,
right,
good thing.
We're going to have to say bye just now, but thanks for your time. That was great.
Okay, thanks for joining. Hey.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. So we'll probably sign off here, and we'll hold more Zoom. Usually we'll put time aside on a Wednesday. So this time it was that, but perhaps we'll do the ICP and the implants. We got some amazing developments with the component library. We were lucky enough to get some major players on board, which is good. Yeah. And so it's, you know, if we can place these analogs into models, that means we can go ahead with our crown and bridge work. Yeah. And this is, because Mike and I, we both do, our background is crown and bridge work. So yeah, we're looking forward to, you know, doing that crown and bridge as well.
No, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Excellent. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.